from the lucid fringe. Ravings from the lucid fringe. Musings from an unpasteurized life. Improvised on the front line of love and beauty. Welcome, I'm Semeric Yarrow. This week on Ravings from the Lucid Fringe, episode 48, Things Spring, Equinox-edged beginnings. There's loose sand beneath our feet, which is never easy to trudge across. In this case, it's not at the beach, though, but on top of a mountain. The Cape's sandstone really is sand at heart, and if the geologists are to be believed, was once under the sea. I could hardly believe it the first time I clambered up to a beach on top of a peak like this as a young man. Now it's familiar, but also not. I spent most of the southern winter in other places and climes, so the spring this year is even more of a new beginning than normal, a refreshing moment to re-engage with my home territory. South Africans get a little overexcited about spring, a little early, with September 1st being officially the first day of the new season. Here we are, though, close to the equinox, to the real tipping point back into the half of the year with more daylight. And it's pouring with rain. A massive thunderstorm as I drove back the other night and then dived under the covers. Although, last week we were sunbathing and jumping in the ocean to cool off. Spring can definitely exacerbate schizophrenic tendencies. However, it's often said in tribal societies that schizophrenic types are the seers, those whose sensual pores are open portals. Without disappearing too far down that rabbit hole, even if there suddenly seem to be more bunnies around, there is definitely a little crackling magic in the air. Things have appeared that weren't there a while ago, including, of course, lots of flowers. In the garden there are long, droopy pokers that the sunbirds are loving when they can make it past those starlings that weren't there last year. Here on the mountain there are some small protea cups I've never seen in bloom before. The pincushions are dazzling in yellow, showing off their success in making it through another year without getting burnt up. And a whole lot of really delicate white stuff that must be more delicate than tissue. Our mountain range really is such a year-round morphing tapestry. There are things that come out in June and July and August, but now it's spring, there surely is more in bloom. It feels like a time for newness. We've done enough consolidating for a while. The ancient astrological cycle began with the vernal equinox, with the fresh ideas with which March began, the first month, with all those Burr months, the Latin giveaway counting up from mystical Sept-ember. That's where we are down here. Mystic time, perhaps. It's a time for flights of fancy. Of course, on the return leg of the walk, I notice entirely different things. Dark pink lily things in a patch of their own. Mimosas chatting in a penguin-like flurry thanks to the wind. The wind. That's another bit of spring magic. It's veered off from that dominant northwester of the winter towards the cold, dry blow from the southeast, which is carving into our dead winter energy in that unavoidable way that everybody says will blow for months now, though it's usually a little more varied than we remember. Funny how memories condense from year to year. At the moment, it may be spring, but that wind definitely keeps the temperature at the scarf-wearing level. And if there are buds about, there are bugs too, spring colds that come because we're sometimes wearing too many layers, often feeling optimistic and wearing too few. The wind blows us out of kilter, and those flights of fancy can get ungrounded if we don't feel the earth too, the steady rocks. Those upstairs beaches might be surprising and sunny, but they have come from these rocks, worked away at by the wind over patient ages. New ideas might be popping up, but many may not get to wriggle their way into the light, or may not make it through the penetrating warmth of the months to come. Elsewhere on the mountain, the green shoots are dazzling. Even with the flowers, it's the green we search for here in the Cape, and the winter rains have provided again. The big fires of May have left plenty of charcoal stumps, but now that bare turf has sprouted into unruly meadows. Primavera, one of the signs of stuff springing. In the north of the country, the green will be less visible now, after a dry and chilly Highveld winter, but a few afternoons of donner and bliksem, and that green will be making its mark, and encouraging the jacarandas in the cities. At the beach, the days veer between smooth crests, tempting out the surfers, and a choppy pummeling to wake up us morning swimmers. And all a week from Michael's time. We don't get that Easter spring thing happening here in the southern hemisphere, even if the sunrise is the first thing to remind us that there's a freshness on the way. Instead, we get to mix spring with Michaelmas, which might sound pretty arcane and medieval, but works fabulously as a metaphor for the time. In the Waldorf schools here, children sing, "So once again the green earth sings, and forth in gladness each flower springs. Renewal of the heart it brings, this time of Michael." The heavenly archangel of our time is said in multiple writings to be the one who stands behind us, urging boldness and bravery. That image is what we need in this light springtime to try and land our dreams. The world right now needs the delicate beauty of our ideas to match what the flowers are putting out there, as the big mama flirts with us roguishly. Michael tends to slice with his sword, which isn't perhaps terribly nurturing and spring-like. He's the one that is always, right now, in that other realm where this time cycle illusion game isn't happening, leading the heavenly host in the great battle. The springtime of this human life, by contrast, is that endless playfulness of the kindergarten, when we often want nothing more than to pick up a big, inspiring bit of green wood that could be a soft sword of truth and justice. I saw plenty of places on my recent European trip dedicated to the kind of Michael that subdued dragons, those funny, fiery dinosaur monster expressions of our transformable and malleable shadows. So perhaps what the Michael spring moment is about is having the kind of ideas that'll get us closer to love, and a little out of this rather messed up techno web that has cocooned us for a while, towards a genuinely moral imagination. Without that sharp ethical edge, springtime is gambling froth, bubbles of nothingness, bubbles of gum, which, when we're not careful, get blown out and into shopfuls of mindless plastic innovation that the world doesn't need. Or the chattering of gossip columns, super surface sanguine that we really didn't mean, can't you take a joke? Or converting our National Heritage Day into a big braai, though, truthfully, meeting round a fire while cooking food is definitely where culture began. Some cheery sparks of resistance crackling with the coals. Exuberance that doesn't land longer than a dragonfly on a twig. It's a vital quality, actually, one I've often lacked by taking life too seriously. So here's the tension in the southern spring. In fact, wild and coquettish country dances can happen if we subdue the dragon. Its fire is for another day. We need to take the wonder, sparkle, surprise of the playground out beyond the garden fence, with care and precision surrounding the laughter. Buddha leaves the palace grounds and is overwhelmed with sorrow, until he sits under a tree, growing green and heart-shaped leaves. We've forgotten, you see, how few things we actually need. Waking up with springtime can remind us. When those birds are in my garden, it's easy to wake up grateful. The wind is chilly, but we're blessed to live in a land where the winter has been harsh but short. We can emerge and know we have 9 months to really play. In Afrikaans, spring is lente, of course, which is a little Dutch remnant related to the Old English word that gave us our name for the northern spring fast before Easter. We didn't quite fast on the mountain the other day, but we did take an hour in silence, just enjoying the miracles on display. Who needs more visuals than nature in springtime? I'm sometimes reminded of the Cambrian explosion in spring. This is the paleontological theory that near the beginnings of complex life there was an explosion of biological phyla, many of which went nowhere in terms of evolution's future development. For me, it's another beautiful metaphor. This is what life does in spring. It bets on 15 horses at once and only 2 finish the race. A little moment bursting with flavour, as ephemeral as those white flowers. Flavours and scents, of course. If the rabbits are anything to go by, pheromones are wafting now in that wind. Seeds have been scattered and are mingling with the minerals. In some cultures, the sky god is scattering his semen into the fertility of the feminine soil. Bursts of possibility. Our hibernating hidden animals are uncurling and gently ready to dance. Gentleness. It's not yet a time for sweaty tangos. Perhaps a naive medieval partner dance here in the rosebud time where everyone looks elegant and untested. Exploratory. So there's an element of suspense about this equinox. Anticipation in all its romantic deliciousness. Shivers in the spine, and yet also moments to speak our wishes, delighted in the knowledge that they'll be fulfilled one day when. Butterflies in the stomach, a kiss across a country stile, a suggestive blush, all the while treading lightly over the land. Fairies are spring creatures in our minds with delicate wings, and they live in a neverland which isn't always spring. There's a delight in it and a danger in it that even the most foolish fairy tale hero has to overcome. Life has to feel a little bit more Lenten for the sake of knowledge, but why worry about that when we haven't even felt the heat yet? Birthing is in fashion again, and that brings with it other phases of responsibility. But such are summer matters if the flow continues as it could. The great joke is that after the whole circular journey you arrive back at spring. Ripples of laughter as the streams pour off the mountain. The other day I saw one pouring down by the roadside at Kolk Bay, giggling abundantly. The brown, tannin-full waters at Scarborough rush under the bridge, erupt onto the beach. I lift my head to see the clouds that are pulling over the mountain. The ocean has just had a spring tide, as it does a couple of times a month. A little burst of planetary exuberance after partner dancing with the moon. Smaller cycles are kicking off now, and longer ones, like the one the solar eclipse just marked, the end of eclipse season. 2 weeks previously we walked in the wind, a crowd of adults and a crowd of children heading to a big log along the beach, and we looked up at the red moon as it vanished and re-emerged. Our ancestors knew the value of these natural markers, and slowly so do we again. Yet it's all an impossible paradox. How can we be going round in circles and know where the circle starts? The one thing I know is that this season is like the land shaking into life again. We only ever think things because the greater consciousness of the land encourages it, I feel. We are the thought flowers of the planet. A blue-green planet which is finding its way to share that with us in multiple colours that are also green, the heart chakra colour. Green is the colour of Jesus in Hindu iconography, the innocence of the heart, the baby in the darkness, a kingship born of seed simplicity, casting away the old rules set in stone tablets in favour of a simple request for love. Love, which, as the image of Michael would perhaps remind us, is sometimes not the easy route. Love thy neighbour when you'd rather take them to court. And that old story comes at a very, very dark point. The Roman age, very far from a loving moral compass, though very expert in creating legal systems and novel punishments. Because that's what spring wants us to remember above all. It's a time for love. From that playful quest for the hunky mate to the joy and Lenten challenges of new parenthood. The important, awesome thing spring reminds us is not to take it too seriously. Open your arms to the sky and love all the time. So, thank you for listening to this latest episode in the series, and you can find all of my articles and my recordings at lucidfringe.substack.com, except my music and poetry from the past, which is all available at simrickyarrow, all one word, .bandcamp.com, and the background recordings and sounds that you will have heard are all either from those recordings or they are my own. Please do give this a rating if it's on your podcast app. Please spread the word if you enjoy what you hear, and if you want to give me some feedback or commentary, of course I'm very open to that. Any suggestions for future episodes? Okay, enjoy. See you next time. Ravings from the